This is probably going to be the most controversial player ranking I've done the whole season, and the reason for that probably is the fact that we didn't win the league, and performances as of late have been absolutely shocking. Form for certain players has completely fallen off a cliff, and we've saw the negative impact of that. And I feel like even though that in this player ranking video I'm going to be ranking the players based on their overall impact on the season as a whole, I think, and I had to bear this in mind while I was doing the different tiers and ranking each player, that recent performances are going to cloud my judgment, and they're going to cloud your judgment as well watching this video, and it might lead to you having some strong opinions on my selections. But listen, I'm no performance analyst, I'm no manager. Yes, I've had a bit of coaching experience, but nowhere near anywhere close to being able to accurately and statistically judge players based on the entire season. This is just how I feel, this is just my opinion, and what I want to do with this video is encourage you guys to jump into the comments, give me your opinion, and we'll have a discussion around the players. I might change your mind, you might change my mind. It is what it is. Let's get into it. So the first player up is an obvious one, it's Jack Butland, and he's got to go into that top tier. There's no doubt about it, the saves he's been able to pull off this season, and God knows where we would be if we didn't have Jack Butland between the sticks. It's as simple as that. He's been absolutely phenomenal, and I think most of the time when we are perceived to not have had a good game defensively, you can't really fault Butland in each of those games, because I think he was the main reason we kept certain score lines so low. He's the reason we've still been in games when all hope was lost, and you can't really argue with putting him in that top tier. Now the next one is Balogun. Now Balogun, I think, has been a solid defender this season. We haven't seen a lot of him, but the fact that more and more fans were wanting to see him come in for the likes of Goldson, or at some stages Suter as well, when those mistakes for Suter crept in, it means that all fans are in agreement he is a solid defender. Yes, he's getting on, yes, he's getting older, but he's still got that strength, he's still got that physicality about him, and a lot of fans wouldn't generally complain if we wanted to keep him on next season and keep him as a backup. He's a solid option off the bench, and that's that. Next we've got Borna Barisic, and let's be honest, we know he's going to leave at the end of the season. He hasn't had much of a big impact. We've not seen him as much, or we've not relied on him as much this season than we have done in previous seasons, but I don't believe when he come on, or when we had seen him this season, that we've seen anything different than those performances we've kind of been used to over the past couple of years. That kind of timid defending, lack of aggression, unwillingness to play forward in key stages of the game. He's just, for us as Rangers fans, we just kind of want to see the back of him. And yes, he's leaving at the end of the season. We thank him for his efforts, but it's definitely time to move on, and for that reason I can't help but put him in that low category. Now obviously Cortez is an interesting one, because we did see glimpses when he was actually playing before he was injured, and he looked like a pretty decent player, and now Rangers are in the predicament where do we go and spend the money or secure that permanent transfer for a player that we have seen provide some good moments of magic, but we haven't really been able to see over the marathon of the full season. That's a risk that only Rangers, the recruitment department, need to weigh up, and obviously Clement as well, to figure out, do we take that risk, do we take that gamble, how confident are we that he will continue that kind of development and performances we've seen before he got that injury. And let me just say, this middle tier just now is a bit of a grey area. It's almost a meh kind of tier, where players, I might include players who have generally had an average season, but at the same time I might include some players in it that have been injured most of the season, and we might have liked the look of, or haven't played amazingly, but we haven't seen enough of them to put forward a very good or a harsh decision. So bear that in mind with that middle tier, but that's where Cortez is going. Now obviously Dessers, for all of us is probably one of the weirdest players that's ever played for us. Yes, the boy's got heart, yes, the boy's got drive, yes, the boy's got physicality, gets into some good spaces, but there's one glaring flaw. Even though he has scored, 17 goals, I'm not 100% sure on the stats, so let me know in the comments, but he has bagged goals this season. Our main problem of why a lot of fans don't think that he is a out and out Rangers striker is because of the chances in big moments, really important chances that we needed to see hit the back of the net that didn't, and that carried on as a common theme throughout the season. In general, there was times where, one-on-ones with the keeper, he'd fire it straight at the keeper, it'd go over the bar. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about with Dessers. He's one of those players that you can appreciate the goals he's got, but you don't really appreciate the goals that he's missed as well. And I firmly believe that if Dessers had a bit more finishing ability about him, then he would have scored significantly more goals than he already has done this season. He's also going to go into that middle category again, because I appreciate the goals he's got. He's got a decent amount of goals, but there's a glaring flaw in the fact that he's missed so many important chances. And I don't believe that, I firmly believe actually, that next season, if we go in there and Dessers is the focal point of that front line and he hasn't developed through pre-season, then yet again we're probably in a lot of trouble. Now, Diamande, one of those kind of shining lights of the season as well. He has been proven to us that he is a very intelligent football player. He can make a big impact on the game. Obviously, his balance and the way he plays the game, the way he reads the game is something that excites us because we can only build upon Diamande as well. Now, obviously, I wouldn't fire him in that top tier, and it almost is harsh not to do that because I feel like he hasn't really had a partnership in that midfield that's been able to support him and help him flourish and show the main key player that he is. And also Kieran said in previous podcasts as well, it'd be good if we could get a bit of weight onto Diamande and almost bring out that physicality within him that we know is there as well. Overall the team's had a pretty poor season, but Diamande has been one of those players that we've seen play and we've thought, right, we've got some sort of shining light here, so I'm going to put him in that A category. Kieran Dowell, when we signed him, I kind of thought he'd have had more an impact on the squad than he already has, but he's seen to have missed large portions of the games that he has been here. Obviously, yes, he's had injury problems as well, but I feel like when we do see him, or when he is fit, either he doesn't get the game time, or whoever the manager is doesn't really fancy him to give him a run as a first team starter, or he's not really made a huge impact in the games we've seen. He's probably going to be one of those players that I'd like to see moved on at the end of the season. If we can, we might not be able to, but I just don't feel like he's made an impact in the squad. He hasn't really lit a fire in my belly watching him play, and you guys will probably be the same. He's going in that C category. Now, Fabio Silva, a player that when he came in first I thought would make a real impact up top, and in the first few weeks, maybe first couple of months he was here, we almost seen a kind of energy that he brought to that front line, that presence he brought up top. He looked as if he wasn't just here to come up for a Premier League team and I've been transferred to Wolves for ridiculous cash, I'm coming up here, I'm going to stroll it. We didn't see that attitude at the start at all, but I feel like over the course of his time at Rangers, fans, he fell more and more out of favour with fans. Obviously, at the old firm at Ibrox, doing a lot of rolling about in the ground, and also the fact that we were drawing 3 each with the likes of Hearts, and he's posting drawn or dropping points, and if he's scored in the game, then he's posting his celebration and stuff like that. He's just not a player that I think gets it at Rangers, and he's just not a player that I think belongs in a dressing room, a title winning dressing room at Rangers, and I can see why a lot of the fans have been annoyed with him this season. So he's going alongside Borna in that D category. Now, Connor Goldson, obviously before we've said that we've talked about his ability to organise a defence, and at times we have seen to have missed him in certain occasions. He's not out often, but we've seen to miss him when he was out. And I think over the course of the season, this season kind of started off at a rock bottom, and then it lifted, and then it flattened out in a rock bottom again. It's one of those seasons that it's so hard to judge player performances, because usually you can turn around and say, well, I had a good start to the season and a good end to a poor end to the season, or vice versa, and it kind of evens it out. But it's going to be hard to lift Connor Goldson any more than that middle of the tier list kind of category, because I think his performances as of late, as well as most of the leaders in the squad, has been extremely poor. And obviously there's rumours going about of is he going to be one of the ones that's leaving? A lot of people hope he's going to be one of the ones that's moved on at the end of the season, mainly because the fact that no longer can Rangers fans forgive for those kind of performances that go in, and the mistakes that get made at the business end of seasons when going gets tough. I've not really got an overall, he's done this well and he's done that tragic, so I'm going to knock him down into that middle of the road category, in the middle of the tier list. And to be honest, I think I'm being pretty generous going off of the most recent performances in the season, and I've no doubt a lot of you will disagree with where I've put him, but that's just how I feel. Tom Lawrence, another player who can have an impact on a game when it does matter. However, a lot of the times gets almost grouped in with that front line to almost have an overall kind of, it's almost a you fly with the crows, you get shot with the crows kind of situation, because our front line has been pretty poor this season. Even though we have created a good amount of chances, our finishing has been absolutely terrible in those games where finishing is so important and we need those goals. Obviously next season we're going to hopefully completely revolutionise that front line, but Tom Lawrence I think hasn't really made a huge impact on the team. At the same time, I think he's far from any of the poorest players in the team, which means I'm going to put him in that middle category. Now, John Lundstrom's one of those players that's caught probably most of the heat this season alongside Goldson and Tavia as part of that leadership group, and Lundstrom is one of those players who obviously in previous seasons, as we all know, we can see what he can do. 100% can see what he can do. However, have we seen that in this season? Not consistently, no. We have seen those moments during the season where we kind of think to ourselves, is Europa League Lundstrom coming back? And then all of a sudden that kind of form dips, and it's a weird one with Lundstrom, because I feel like far too often you see him dropping back into the defensive line and trying to link up between those centre backs or that back line in games where we really need him to push higher up the park and get right into the thick of it. The frustration with Lundstrom is the performances have been so hot and cold this season. He's another player that during that that important period of the season kind of almost stumbled his way to the end of the campaign. I haven't really been impressed with Lundstrom this season, and I think there's nobody who'll know that more than John Lundstrom himself. Obviously, it was the final nail in the coffin for a lot of fans, the previous Old Firm, with that own goal and how he almost reacted to it. So I'm going to put him in that C category. Now, Matondo's one of those players that we have seen moments of magic from him. His pace is unreal. It's so valuable in certain games. Obviously, he scored that absolutely stunning goal against Celtic as well. There's no doubt, I think, that he is a good player. Is he a player that if we recruit more and more next season, or revolutionise that front line next season, will be a player that will kind of step up and, you know, keep a tight grip on that starting position. I don't know. I don't know, to be honest. I've not seen enough, you know, really strong performances from him to come to a conclusion on that yet. But there's no doubt he is a good player, pacey player, tricky player to play against at times, but he's going in that kind of middle of the road category as well. Now, I don't know whether everybody will agree with this, but I think McCausland has had a pretty decent season. And when I say that, I mean he is a really young player, but I think that to come into a season like this, step up, kind of keep his nerve and keep every single game, you know, bringing a bit of drive, bringing a bit of energy, trying to get into that opposition box. His technical ability kind of shows almost that he's not really lacking in confidence. He's a player that, if with a wee bit more quality into him and develop him a wee bit more over the course of a season or two, I think he could be a really good player for us. And, you know, there's times where, yes, you'd look at games and you'd think he's been pretty ineffective, but I think a lot of the time when I watch McCausland, I don't see him as one of those players who crumbled, if you get what I mean. He doesn't come across as, I don't watch his performances and think, you know, he was away up here at this stage in the season and then he just fell off a cliff when the going gets tough. He's not one of those players. Anytime he's been subbed on as well, I think the energy up at that, you know, that half of the pitch has kind of increased slightly as well, so I can't really grumble. I'm excited to see what he can develop into, and I'm going to put him in that A category. Now, Raskin, again, another one of those players who has been, you know, had an injury plague him all season as well, been in and out the team. Obviously, there's, at the end of last season, we'd have looked at Raskin and thought he's going to be a big player for us next season. And, you know, during that kind of Beale era, you know, no one was really playing well at all, and obviously we didn't see him in the team for a long time as well, and I don't really think the performances he was putting in towards that middle to start part of the season was something we expected from him. But I still firmly believe that there is a player in there. We just better hope that we can get it out of him. If not, he's going to have to be one of those players that we move on. If we're unsure on a player, we need to we need to try and move them on. As I said, I could say we can move them on. There's no guarantee we can move players on, but Raskin's one of those players that I really hope pulls through, develops further, and we can see the type of player he actually is. So I'm going to put him in that middle category as well. Yilmaz is a player who I think has, you know, rightfully been a mainstay at that left back position. He's, you know, night and day compared to Barisic. He wants to drive forward. He likes that attacking aspect of the game, and also I think he's better in that defensive, you know, aspect as well. Obviously, when you compare him, because you can only compare him to Borna Barisic, I think his positioning when he's getting driven at one-on-ones is a lot better. Barisic tends to give a player a few more yards as well. I generally enjoy watching Yilmaz, and when he's been injured, we have missed him a lot. It's not even, you know, it's not even debatable how much we've missed him down that side of the park. So I'm going to put him in that A category. Now, Roof, injured as well. There's a common theme, and I feel like a broken record saying this every time I bring up the next screenshot or the next part of the tier list, but plagued with injuries as well. To be honest, it's one of those ones where if you're injured that much or that often, you've got to kind of get knocked down this tier list almost, because he's a player that we can't really trust. You know, we can trust him in a footballing sense. He's obviously a great player, but we can't really trust fitness wise, and it's a shame for Roof as well, because I think if we'd have got, you know, the maximum play time out of Roof, he would easily have been, especially now, one of the main striker, without a doubt. But unfortunately, injuries wise, and the fact that the small time, the short periods at bursts of time that we have seen him this season, he hasn't really made a huge impact in the game. It isn't really his fault, but I'm going to put him in the C category. Now, John Souttar, I mean, he's a solid defender, but there are, as well as the rest of the defensive line, there are those mistakes that have crept in, and these are important mistakes, to be honest. And I've not got a massive amount to say on John Souttar, because even though we all know he's a good defender, and we all know, if anything, we'd want to go into next season finding another, finding a centre-back pair that complements John Souttar, and almost if Goldson goes, then we'd maybe want to put Souttar in Goldson's position and find a decent partner for him. He's made mistakes, he's had good games, he's a middle of the road in this tier list, to be honest. Sterling is the player that I would easily see up there with Jack Butland, and the reason for that is, every single position we've played him in, he's played out of position nearly all season, and every single position we've played him in, he has probably been the best player in that position. We played him in midfield and everybody wanted him to be a mainstay in the midfield. When Yilmaz was injured, they played at left back, and we're like, we're going to take him over Borna Barisic. We've seen him at centre back as well, and a lot of people have thought, don't mind watching him here, he looks pretty decent, looks pretty solid. He's played so many positions this season, and it's been, without him, I don't know where we'd be, because the team's so much more flexible with him in it, especially in a period of time where, we had 11 injuries at this point of the season, so you can't really grumble at his output, to be honest. He's easily up there with Jack Butland. Ryan Jack, a player we're probably going to see the back of this season as well. Not really played a lot, not really made an impact on the season. There's not a lot to be said about him. I'm going to have to put him in that C category. And now we all know how good a player Sima is. We've seen him play. I think that we're much more kind of potent. We've got much more of an edge when Sima's up the top of the park. Where that striker fell short in terms of finishing, he's kind of stepped up, and he's one of those players that I'm gutted has been injured for a large part of the season, because I really do think we've missed him. Hopefully he'll be available for the Scottish Cup. I think that's what Clement's been trying to, continue his recovery and almost protect him from those high games towards the end of the season. I mean, he may not have been ready for, the games like Parkhead and things like that, but I really wish that we had him for the large part of the season, because I genuinely do think he's a cracking player. The only issue is we're probably not going to see him next season because of the money that his club is wanting for him, that I just do not think we will pay, to be honest. But I'm going to put him in that A category. Scott Wright is another player who a lot of Rangers fans are going to want to see moved on at the end of the season. I think although he's got a couple of goals recently, over the course of the season he hasn't really made much of an impact, and most of the time it's coming off the bench. So the C category it is. Now, Todd Cantwell was probably an annoying one to judge this season, because we all know what Todd Cantwell has in him, and there's times throughout the season where he'll just be able to switch it on, but I think Clement has almost recognised that Cantwell needs to put in those two halves of football. He can't just live off of those kind of moments or periods of magic. He's one of those players that I feel like we've really needed in big games, but we haven't really seen, to be honest. Again, we all know what kind of player he is, but I don't think we've seen the best of that this season, so I'm going to put him in that middle of the road category. Now, James Tavernier is a big one. When I started this video, I said that, it's going to be controversial in a sense that, recent performances are going to probably cloud over the impact over the course of the season. James Tavernier is one of those players that always, no matter what season you get, you're going to get numbers out of him. You're going to get goal contributions, penalties, dead ball set pieces. He's going to put the ball in the net, or he's going to contribute to putting the ball in the net, and he is a good player going forward. All round he's a good player. However, fans can't really forgive him for the fact that over the course of the season it's got to this point where we really needed him the most, and I feel like that form just kind of fell off at the end of the season. Usually I'd be putting James Tavernier right up the top because of his numbers, because of his contributions, and also there's always debates over the captaincy as well. I just feel like his performances in the recent couple of weeks or the past month or so have knocked him down there. I'm still, James Tavernier's been an absolutely magnificent servant for this club, but the main thing is that, in order to be judged that way, you need silverware. A club like Rangers, you need silverware, and I don't think he's got enough of that. But this season, I'm going to knock him down. I'm still going to put him. It's a tough one. I was going to go middle of the road, but I'm like, is it a bit harsh? I don't know. I'll put him in the A category, but depending how the Scottish Cup goes, I wanted to do this before the Scottish Cup because it's kind of end of the league campaign, player ranking. But he'll sit there just now, just on the edge before dropping down to the B. Again, one of those players that a lot of fans will probably want to see moved on and think, thanks for the efforts, Tav, but time's up. It's time to have a clean slate and move on to the next era of leadership in the club. Now, I know it's a player ranking, but I can't help but put in the manager and go over the manager's performance. Obviously, when Beale left, Clement came in, we did see that manager bounce, and we were worried that would kind of flatline because all fans knew the flaws that were within the squad, and the injury list kept kind of growing and growing and growing. And to be honest, when you look at the circumstances around what Clement inherited, you can't help but feel that he has done a good job. Yes, throughout the season we've debated his team selections, or we've not agreed with his team selections, and we've almost it's annoyed us at the fact that after that team selection it'd sometimes take us to go a goal down or 2 goals down, and then he'd make those appropriate changes and we'd come back into the game. It has annoyed us, but at the end of the day, I don't know what manager would come in here and be able to make a title-winning squad out of the players we've got with the injury list we've got. It's an extremely hard task, and I think if they'd pulled it off, it would have been, remarkable. It would have been almost a miracle, and we nearly done it. We almost done it, and obviously towards that end of the season, we dropped all of those points and kind of wiped the slate clean, and then went back to square one. Although I can't agree with every single decision he's made, overall, I'm going to have to put him in that A category just now, because we as fans need to realise that I've seen folk calling for him a go, and they're saying, I don't know what Clement could do to take us forward. I don't agree with that. He's come in midway through a season, inherited what is now an 11 player full injury list, with a squad that Beale had built to play that narrow football. Recruitment that summer was mistake after mistake. I don't really know how much more he could have done, and obviously he's not going to be perfect. There are going to be mistakes in there, team selection mistakes, but I think I look at that squad and it kind of blows my mind, and I think it'll blow a lot of fans' minds how you pull a squad together to win games consistently. So you can't really knock him for that. I hope he gets the players in the summer that he needs, and I hope we can see an almost revitalised squad and a revitalised fan base at the start of next season. But what I want you to do is, obviously I want you to jump into the comments. I want you to let me know what you thought about my selections. Obviously everybody's going to disagree with certain players. As I says, I'm just going off the feeling of the overall season, to be honest. There's going to be players that I'll look at maybe in a couple of days' time and knock a couple down and bring a couple up, but this is just how I feel just now. I just wanted to encourage a general conversation about each and every individual player, because I like jumping into the comments, I like discussing it with you guys. You'll change my mind and stuff, I might change your mind and stuff. That's the beauty of the comments section. Remember, the Blue Sea Patreon is still available. The link to that's down in the description. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.